Welcome back. In this lesson we are going to learn about multiplying positive and negative fractions. And generally when you're multiplying fractions, all you have to do is to go ahead and multiply across their numerators and multiply across the denominators and then reduce this fraction if possible. Okay, so in algebraic terms, if you have a over b times c over d, you just multiply a times c, b times d. And the one thing you can never have is we can't have zeros in the denominator. So that's what this means. B and D cannot equal 0 because we can't divide by 0. I'm going to show you a method to do this where we reduce before we multiply because I think it's easier to have our answer in reduced form and not miss some common factors by doing that. So let's take a look at how we would do this. Here's an example. It says to multiply these positive fractions. So we have 4/9 times 3/5. So I'm just going to rewrite 4/9 times 3/5 right here. Now, do we have any common factors? Well, I like to look at any numerator, any denominator. I cannot reduce the individual ones, but along any diagonal you can reduce. So 3 goes into 3 and 9. So 3 divided by 3 gives me a 1. And 9 divided by 3 gives me a 3. So then I can go ahead and write what that's equal to. Now I can multiply across because I've already reduced it. So I have 4 times 1, which is 4. And in the denominator I have 3 times 5, which is 15. And it's already in reduced form. Okay. If you were to multiply across to begin with without reducing it, let me just show you how that would work. You'd have 4/9 times 3/5. So this is just the alternative method. I like this first method here first. It's up to you which way you want to do it. If I just multiply across, I get 12 over 45. But remember, we want this in simplest form, which means you have to reduce it. So you will have to look at this fraction then and recognize that both of these share a factor of 3. So you want to divide by 3 here and divide by 3 here. And sometimes you won't recognize that. That's why I like to reduce first as we're going, because it's more likely you'll recognize that factor of 3 there. So I still end up with the same answer of 4/15. The downside of this too is you'll get big numbers, and sometimes those big numbers are harder to deal with. Okay. Here are 3 problems for you to try on your own. Please go ahead and pause the video and get your answers first, and then we'll click on the stars and see if you got the right answers. Alright, I hope you gave that a try. 1/4 times 2/3. Okay, 1/4 and 2/3, they share a common factor of 2, right? So we can reduce right here across that diagonal. This one's a 1, this one becomes a 2. And what do we get for an answer then? We get 1 over 6. How about the second problem? 5 goes into 20. Whoops, not sure how that happened there. Hang on just a second. Let me go back if I can do that. So let's try that again. 5 goes into 20 4 times, and 5 goes into 5 once. 3 goes into both 3 and 12, so I'll get a 1 here and a 4 here. So now if we go ahead and multiply across, 1 times 1 gives us 1, and 4 times 4 gives us 16. So let me erase that one there. There you go. And the last one. This one we don't have anything to reduce. You can't reduce across numerators, so we have to go ahead and just multiply that one across. So we know it will already be in reduced form. So we get 49 over 160. Nothing you can reduce on that one. Negative fractions are exactly the same. You just have to be careful of your signs, okay? So in this problem we have negative 5, 6, and I usually just put the negative with the top number so that I don't forget about it, and then multiplying that by 3 over 8. Okay, so what factors do we share in common? Well, 3 goes into 6 and 3 goes into 3. 3 goes into 6 twice. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 5 and 8 don't share any common factors, so now we can just go ahead and multiply across. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. And then in the denominator we have 2 times 8, which is 16. So you get negative 5/16. Alright, once again, here are 3 problems for you to try on your own. Please pause the video and try these to see if you're understanding and see if you get the right answers. All right, let's take a look at how you did. In this first problem, 3 will go into both 3 and 9, so this one becomes a 1, this one becomes a 3. 4 also goes into 8, hope you saw that one as well, so this one becomes a 2, and this one becomes a 1. Now if we go ahead and multiply across, 2 times 1, and don't forget this negative sign right here, it's really 2 times negative 1, which is a negative 2 over 3. Second problem here, we have 3 goes into 9. Okay, this one becomes a 3. This one becomes a 1. 5 and 7 don't share any common factors, so we know at this point we can go ahead and multiply across and we get negative 7/15. And the last one for letter F, 2 and 6 share a common factor of 2. Not sure why it's doing that on us. Let me get my marker back here. 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into 2 1 time, and 1 and 7 have no common factors, so now we're ready to go ahead and multiply across. Negative 1 times negative 3. Now be careful here, we have 2 negatives, so our answer is going to be positive. In the numerator we get 3, in the denominator we get 7. Display those answers for you again. What about when we have mixed numbers? These get a little bit more difficult. So in order to multiply mixed numbers, it says first rename, this is very, very important, first rename them as improper fractions. We have to do that first, okay? So don't forget that step. We want to make sure to do that first. So 4 1/2 times 2 2/3, remember to rename them as improper fractions. They keep the same denominator. So if you want to start, you can just go ahead and write what the denominators are going to be. But then remember, this numerator is going to be bigger than the denominator. We're going to do 4 times 2, which is 8, plus 1, which is 9. And in this one, we're going to do 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 2, which is 8. So now we have them rewritten as improper fractions. We've done that step. And now it's just the same as it was before. We can go ahead and reduce if we can reduce, and then we'll multiply across. So 3 and 9 share a common factor of 3. I'm going to divide both of those by 3. 2 and 8 share a common factor of 2. So that leaves me with an answer of 3 times 4, which is 12. 1 times 1 is 1, which is just the number 12 in simplest form. Okay, so there's our answer. Here are 3 more problems for you to try on your own. Pause the video. Remember, write the ones that are mixed number. A mixed number has a whole number and a fraction. Put those in improper fraction form first and then multiply. I'll give you the answers when you come back. Alright, I hope you gave those a try. Let's take a look. 1 1/2 as a mixed number is 3/2. 1 2/3 as a mixed number is 5/3. Okay? So then when you go ahead and multiply, you can reduce the 3's. They cancel out, right? They both become 1's. So we end up with 5/2. Well, what is that as a mixed number? That's really 2 1/2. All right, the next problem, 5/7 times 1 3/5. Well, our denominator is still a 5, so it's 1 times 5, which is 5, plus 3, which is 8. And is there anything we can reduce here? Well, yes, there is. We have one common factor of 5 that we can reduce. That becomes a 1 here and a 1 here. So now when we multiply across, we get 1 times 8, which is 8, over 7, which is 1 1/7. Okay? I probably should write that down for you. This one was 8/7. Sorry about that. All right, let's take a look at the last one then. And that one says negative 2 1/6. Well, how many sixths is that? That is negative 13/6. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. And we're multiplying that by negative 1 1/5. 1 times 5 is 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. And remember, that has a negative sign as well. So keep those negatives. I just put them with the numerator, with the top number. Is there anything that we can reduce here? Well, 6 and 6 are going to cancel out. We get a 1 for both of those, right? And 5 and 13 don't share any common factors. So we end up, when we multiply across, we get negative 13 times negative 1 is positive 13. Negative times negative is positive. 1 times 5 is 5. So that's the improper fraction. But then when we put it in reduced form, we end up with 2 and 3/5. 2 and 3/5. Here's a word problem for you. It says a roller coaster at an amusement park is 160 feet tall. If a new roller coaster is built that is 2 and 3/5 times as the height of the existing roller coaster, what is the height of the new roller coaster? Well, that means we're going to take 2 and 3/5 and multiply it by 160. This is the height of the existing one. The new one will be even bigger. It'll be 2 and 3/5 as big. It'll be taller. So we're going to multiply those two. But that means we have to change this fraction to an improper fraction, right? The mixed number to an improper fraction. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3 is 13/5. And in this one, 5 goes into 160, right? We can cancel here, and we can cancel here. That goes into there, let's see, 32 times, I believe it is. So then when we multiply across 13 times 32, we end up with 2080 over 5, but we had already reduced that. You should get 416 when you multiply 13 times 32. So the new roller coaster is going to be 416 feet high. Now take a look at your answer and see if it makes sense. Is 416 at least twice as big as 160? And yes, it is, okay? So that makes sense. You should get a number a lot bigger than 160. Here's an example for you. A piece of lumber is 4 1/4 feet long. If you need a piece of lumber that is 2/3 of that size, how long of a piece do you need? Well, I'll set this up for you, and then I want you to go ahead and pause the video. So we have 2/3 as big as 4 1/4. Okay, so that's what you're trying to do. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can come up with the answer to that one. All right, how'd you do? Let's take a look. So we have 2/3. Now we need to change this to an improper fraction, right? Our denominator stays the same, but we got to figure out the top number. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1, which is 17. And then we can check to see if we have common factors. Well, 2 and 4 have a common factor of 2, so if I divide both of those by 2, I get that. And then we can go ahead and multiply across, so that gives us 17 over 6. But now we got to change it back to a mixed number. How many times does 6 go into 17? Well, it goes in there twice. 6 times 2 is 12, and 17 minus 12 is 5 are left over, right? So 2 and 5/6 is how long of a piece we need, and that is in feet. We should always include our units in there. Dimensional analysis. You've probably been using this in science, and I think we've talked about this in math before. And this allows us to change units of measurement when we're doing calculations. So let's take a look at what this problem says. It says, refer to the information at the left. Suppose a VH-71 helicopter is traveling at its cruising speed. How far will it travel in 1 3/4 hours? Okay. And down here they tell us the cruising speed is 172 miles per hour. And it has 200 square feet of cabin space. I don't think we're going to use that for this one. I think I deleted the problem that had that. So the thing we need to know is our distance equals the rate times the time. So if we use distance as rate times time, its rate is 172 miles per hour per every 1 hour. So that's rate times time. Okay, and it told us that it takes 1 3/4 hours. Well, this 1 3/4 needs to be written as an improper fraction. So 1 times 4 is 4 plus 3, which is 7 over 4. Multiply by 172. So we can go ahead and multiply across. So we get 172 times 7/4, but 4 goes into 172, 43 times. So now we can just multiply 43 times 7, and this will all be over 1. Okay, so 43 times 7 gives us 301. And notice our units, the hours canceled because we had the same units here, and we are left with miles. So that gives us 301 miles. Here are a couple for you to try, 9 problems. Please make sure you write your name at the top of this one because I will probably collect this as a quiz. So have this ready at the beginning of the hour. So go ahead and try these 9 problems, write your answers below, and show all your work. We'll see you next time.